type yes if you can hear me okay. Morning, Fiona. Hi, Christine. Hi, everyone. Hi, Helen. Yep, great to see you on. Yeah, hey, Mitch. Good to see you on. Okay, so excellent. So great to see you all on here, and getting now to the nuts and bolts of it all, and starting to look a little bit more at manifestation and having a bit of an introduction to something that really helps with manifestation, what I call energy reading, and learning how to do that. So before we do a normal housekeeping, so getting rid of your distractions, turning your mobiles and social media on silent, and recordings available within 48 hours. So, okay, so before we start, anyone got anything to share? Any experiences, anything that's happened, anything you've manifested this week? So just feel free to share what's happened. Max, private message, Lyle, probably too much to share at once. Yeah, I can understand that, Max. That can start happening once you learn to manifest. Doing daily manifestation, put simply, it's working, reality rapidly transforming. Yeah, it sure does, doesn't it? It really does start to transform when you apply it consistently and daily. Helen, been having my sleep disturbed a lot. Not quite sure what that would be. No, Fiona, not anything is specific. How everything seems to be aligning. Yeah, well, that's generally a very good sign, because it means that you're actually starting to deal with the things in the way. And generally it means rather than constantly manifesting dramas or challenges, you're starting to just create your thoughts and intentions on manifesting what you want rather than what you don't want, Fiona. So that's great. That's really good. Christine, I'm beginning to deal with some blocks to the manifestation, starting to deal with my shit. Christine Norby says, yeah. It's very interesting when you do it, isn't it? I've noticed since I started doing manifestation on a deeper level over the last few weeks, I've noticed that things are aligning. I'm noticing that things are dropping off in my life. And I noticed that, yes, I was led onto a fast as well, as some of you know. So, yeah, more peace. Mitch, same boat as Max, daily manifestations for all of my experiences and gigs especially. Everything has been flowing. That's great. I love to hear that, Mitch. That's brilliant. Nolene, I'm with Christine Norby, still working through the shit. Yeah, the things are getting in the way. New level of confidence really for Max and peace. So yeah, there's a range of different experiences which normally happens when you have a range of people all doing the same course, where you'll get some who will step up and start seeing amazing things in their life, some that see a little bit more challenges coming up. Steve Plummer, I'm becoming more aware of divine right timing rather than forcing an outcome. More please. Yep, that's very true. I love that one, Steve. Absolutely love that one about divine right timing. That's actually one of the things that starts happening when you start manifesting and make it a regular habit in your life. You just start realizing more and more that everything is working together for the highest good. And you tend to go through various stages in your evolution with manifestation and how it works. And you start off originally by being very much taking manifestations, and you do it like rigidly. Then you have some spectacular successes. Then often you have periods where not much seems to happen. But what you do notice over a period of time is that things start to come together a whole lot more as you're doing it. And you do learn that things do happen in divine right timing, and that sometimes you're just not ready for things. And especially if you put a really big manifestation and don't take a lot of action, then then what tends to happen is you tend to often get a little bit of a wake-up call come your way. And before you know it, you've had something to give you a bit of a shove. So that's probably one of the biggest things I've learned with manifestations. It tends to give you a bit of a shove and a bit of a hurry on when you're not doing stuff. And yeah, William's sitting here laughing. He's had similar stuff. He was telling me just this morning over breakfast how he's actually having this happen to him a lot lately. Like he's been having stuff come up. I was speaking yesterday to one of my colleagues who learned similar stuff and is a brilliant manifestor and very successful businessman. And he said the last 3 months, he said, it's like all of his manifestations, although he's been certainly doing well financially, he said it's been more leaning him toward healing. And stuff's been coming up around his family, around his father, around things like that. William was sharing something similar today. Sammy, the last week or so, she's been having stuff come around her family life and really clearing very deep stuff around that. I've had the same thing happening. So there does seem to be a lot going on around clearing and healing right now, which, and from what I'm reading and reading David Wilcock's stuff, who's one of the great synchronicity teachers, he's saying we're in a time of a massive global shift right now. And there's no doubt that's happening. And when you're seeing crappy stuff going on the planet, like we're seeing more and more, we know that's what's basically going on. And it's all part of our healing journey and part of basically clearing our stuff so we can start to manifest more what we want. Just as a bit of an aside for all of you that you might find incredibly interesting, they did a study on happiness and wellness and actually researched about 1.7 million people, so it's a pretty accurate study on general happiness and wellness. And what you'll find is very interesting what they actually found. They found on a US-based income, and similar to Australia, they found people on very low incomes generally had the two groups that had very low levels of happiness and general well-being were people with either very, very high net worth and wealth or people with basically very low incomes. They found generally people around the 50 to 75 grand income were starting to experience better wellness, and they found generally around the 75 to about 150 grand mark of income, people seem to have a greater level of happiness than others, which I found quite fascinating. And in other words, what they found was that people with very, very high incomes, they said often had other emotional issues in their life, and they started using their money as a distraction. Now, that wasn't always the case, and of course you can obviously make very high incomes and still have happiness, but it really lines a lot up with what we've been teaching and about what Jesus said. So it just shows that the more money you've got, all I get the lesson from that is the harder it is to be detached from it. You tend to get more attached to it, and then that brings you back into this 3D experience. Whereas, for example, people around the 75 to 100 grand, 25 grand mark are generally, learning to be happy with what they've got and generally find many things to be content about. So very, very interesting. Fiona, I've noticed that many people in my field have little work, but we have heaps of people calling and we're getting lots of work. No, that's great. Absolutely love that, Fiona. Yeah, that's really good. Again, well, that's certainly manifestation in action. We're noticing it too. I've just noticed in the last week or two, I've actually been noticing more sales coming in one of my businesses, just coming in really easily. And I've been like, I haven't been doing anything, like literally been doing nothing different. No Facebook ads, no marketing, nothing. And that's what happens when you start to manifest and expand your consciousness. The law of attraction just starts to bring people to you. It's one of the things Jesus said, that you are the light of the world. A city on a hill cannot be hidden. And basically the light where they'll attract to you. Max says it's amazing because I've done it for quite a significant chunks of desires I've had for a while. And now it's at the point where I'm getting creative about things I desire to manifest. Yeah, no, you do. I even had this week. Like some of you know that there's 4 of you or a small number of you right now doing a healing certification with me. And I've been really thinking of ways to improve that and improve the standard and the quality of what I'm actually doing with that. And just this week, I was on the phone to someone because we were needing to do a video for our membership site. And basically he said, and I had this name come up for me, someone who I'd known from my past. So I rang him and he said, absolutely, we can do it and give you a really good deal. But then I was sharing what I'm doing, and he shared with me that right now he's just completed one of the world's first legal project management certifications, and he was showing me how he did it. So when I shared with mine, he said, well, is I can show you ways to make that even more effective and even more world-class if you're interested. And I said, I'm not going to say no to that. So it's quite amazing. It's just a little synchronicity that start happening, and you start dealing with stuff, and stuff starts coming up, and you start getting led to things to deal with and do. Christine, is it because money is needed in order to have some of the freedoms needed in order to action? Can you just elaborate on that a bit, Christine? I'm not quite understanding what you're saying. Are you talking about the general happiness? Because basically, my take on it, yeah, well, Christine, those of low income are less happy. Well, obviously, if you've got lower income, the biggest problems with very low incomes is you compromise on little things, like, for example, your health. Like, I eat really, really well, but I buy organic vegetables. We eat really, really well. And those of you who know, if you went and bought really cheap, crappy stuff at Woolworths to save money, you're obviously going to save money, but it definitely means you're going to get more toxicity and pesticides in your body. So that's probably one very good example, how low income actually, the other thing is too, like I regularly see a really good chiropractor and massage and things like that, and go to a gym and get regular training and assessment to keep my body in top shape, because as I see it, I'm sitting on computers a lot, and I know that health is wealth, but all that costs a fair bit of money. And things like going on travel and doing trips that you really like, for example, they cost money. So generally, when you have good money, you are able to do these kind of things. So when you're getting a really good income, you can do more of the things like look after your health better. You can start to manifest more of that kind of stuff. But of course, just keep in mind that, yeah, so you manifest more health, more, and you can generally manifest more experiences, you can dress better, you can, all that kind of stuff. Like you can live in a better area, which is higher consciousness, which you enjoy more, all that kind of stuff. It does overcome a point where once you've got a certain amount of money, that the question is what you really need it for now. And most people end up just buying more and more things, more and more possessions. Whereas really it becomes a point when it's like, okay, sure, we can improve our lifestyle, which you certainly can, but at the same time, making sure that you're giving back extensively to humanity and serving the higher work. And generally, my experience is that people who are wealthy but giving a lot in terms of helping the higher good, they're the exception to the rule. So the moral of the story is you can be very wealthy financially, but you just have to make sure that as well as taking care of your own needs and living abundantly, you're also taking care of the higher needs, which, by the way, is why the tithe was originally such a good principle. Hope that explains, Christine. So anyway, just some thoughts for you to consider, and certainly give you all the more incentive to manifest to increase your income and really grow it, and start to really grow it, and just make sure as you're growing it that you're using some of it for your own enjoyment, your own pleasure, and your own greater fulfillment of your lifestyle and dreams, and some of it to serve the planet. Okay, so obviously we've already covered these weeks 1 to 4. Last week we covered more manifestation, so we covered the water into wine. Today we're going to just refresh a little bit on manifestation, but we're also going to cover an introduction to energy reading. And then, of course, the next 2 weeks after that, we'll be doing specific manifestation and clearings around these areas around money and around tax. These are always some of the more exciting ones when people start to get clear on their dreams. So really, as you're all now learning, you can transform your energy through manifestation. Okay, so of course the biggest thing we looked at today is around science and how science actually and spirituality and manifestation are now starting to correlate. We've learned that the quantum realm is real and the classic physics is now considered very questionable. There is an etheric or mystical realm, and matter is preceded by consciousness, not the other way around. Interconnectedness of all things. That is, things or objects aren't localized but are spread throughout the parts, i.e. they are a hologram. So these things are really important to get when you're doing the manifestation, because you start to realize eventually that everything that you're doing and believing in is all basically ultimately a manifestation. So in other words, the quantum realm is basically real. So classic physics, which means basically the whole idea of the theory of relativity, and the Keys of Enoch talks a lot about this, as well as the scrolls of Adam and Eve, and they're realizing how Einstein's theory, a lot of it really wasn't entirely correct, what's been the hallmark of modern physics. And that instead you do have this etheric or quantum realm, which is beyond time and space, which you can manifest in. You have this interconnectedness of all things. And really, if you think about it, we're just basically multidimensional light beings living a human experience. That's all we're basically doing. Space and time don't exist. It's all completely relative. So that's a really important one to realize, and you certainly start to learn that as you do things like remote viewing and other things like that. Things don't actually exist until they are observed is another one. And particles can become waves and vice versa, and particles remain until that point. It's very much how a television works. The waves basically go onto the screen and basically become a particle. And that's how you can actually watch television, by the way. Max puts one big aha with me for this, has been to realize it's no big deal. Being a multidimensional being, it's normal. Yeah, look, absolutely it's normal. In fact, we're multidimensional beings attempting to function in a very limited human incarnation. So a little bit like someone trying to play a game of soccer or football, carrying a 20-kilogram backpack with weights in it. It's like very similar as to having a human body while attempting to live a multidimensional experience. And in some ways, the more time goes on, the more I'm convinced it's like we really have a planet full of a myriad of different beings. And a lot of the beings who are here are just angels in other places and higher level gods and beings who come here to actually practice, a little bit like deliberately put themselves into a hard environment to make a difference and to actually then ascend and kind of in a way ascend to other realms. So a little bit like challenges in the same way that people do like triathlons and things like that. In many ways, that's more and more how I'm starting to see planet Earth, which is quite fascinating. Max says, do you think some people are like non-player characters or bots, simulated people? Yeah, very much, very possibly, Max. I wouldn't surprise me one little bit if that was the case. And alternate timelines or realities are strong possibilities and indeed make a heck of a lot of sense. So yeah, a training ground, a simulated bots. Yeah, well, it wouldn't surprise me. Put it that way, Max. So if basically that was the case. Yeah, Mitch, the people who go in circles do the same thing every day and have the same phrases they say to customers. Yeah, look, it's very possible. It would not surprise me. I think that there's and when you read the Keys of Enoch and you realize how much of this cloning and interbreeding and species creation has been going on, you realize we do really have a broad range of different beings on this planet, learning to coexist together and things like that. So, of course, we learned about turning water into wine. That was one of our big ones that we just studied with Jesus and how he turned water into wine. And we went through and learnt the various lessons and about casting down the voice of doubt, about the period of time and waiting and of trusting and things like that. And altered brain states as well. So that was the other thing we went into as well. So these are the different brain states that we all learnt about, essentially. So the alpha, the theta, and the delta state. So we learned about all these different ones, basically. Okay, and the other thing we looked into as well, which is really important just to go back over, is this whole manifestation process. So there are no set rules or rituals, but I use 5 steps to manifestation to assist the process. Create the manifestation, command the manifestation, clear the blockages, take the actions, and let go and let God, the higher mind. So creating your intention, the more specific and clear you are in your manifestation, the more easy your manifestation will happen. So being vague does not work, so be clear in what you desire. Today's exercise is that we're doing a manifestation around a money goal. So, for example, it is commanded by the laws of the golden liquid realms and the chemical powers that I manifest complete and total success as a trader, getting 70% of my trades profitable. I generally prefer a specific money amount, but that can be a starting point which you can choose to do and to go with. And these are the commands of light language which you do, which helps to accelerate them in. Another example that we gave here was that I manifest 20,000 in my business, or an income of 20,000 a month, as we see this one here, or rather 20,000 per month in my business. That's another one. Or that I manifest complete healing and perfect wholeness in my body at all levels now. Aham brahmasmi ta aja intadoi. Next is to issue the command. For without authority, the universe does not act. The command is not asking with hesitation or uncertainty, but, as you said here, you receive not because you ask not, and you ask not because you don't believe. That's a very great scripture in the Bible. The bold and effective prayer of a righteous man avails much. So it says you don't receive because you don't ask, and then you don't ask because deep down you have doubts and you really don't believe it's going to happen for you. And I'm sure some of you fall directly into that. Ask boldly and fearlessly. Worst case scenario is you don't get it. And this is half the problem. The reality is many people live more in the fear of disappointment, which is what stops them moving forward. And I'll admit I've done that at times past for many years. In fact, I did this. And it's only been in the recent years that I've learned to step up and not actually do that. So worst case scenario is you just basically don't get it. I mean, the worst case scenario is you ask and you don't get it. That's basically your worst case scenario. So it's commanded by the laws of the golden liquid realms and the chemical powers. So that's the way we do the command. That. Hum brahmasmi ta aja intadoi. So this is why we do that. Christine says, Norby says, I didn't want to make a manifestation and find out that I was not successful with it. Helen Gonzal, or find out the timing was not right. So yeah, look, the truth is, the greatest, most successful people on the planet didn't always get everything go their way the first time out. And in many cases, they have to plow in and keep going for a long time. So manifestation changes your thought processes and the way you perceive things and the way you see things and the way you tune into things. But it doesn't give you necessarily an automatic magic wand, as much as we would like it to do, to cause something to come into pass. So Nat says, when we say I am this I am, are we saying I am this manifestation? Well, yes, we are. We're basically saying we are the I am, which means we are God, we are Brahma, we are creating this manifestation. We are operating in the creative power of God, is what it's basically saying. So it's commanded by the laws of the golden liquid realms. Yeah, so stepping out and being bold, exactly. Max says, Steve Pavlina has a brilliant angle on this. He says there's a story element to manifestation. That if something you want to manifest to make a good character development story, the universe is more likely to support that. That's interesting, Max. I haven't heard that one before, but it wouldn't surprise me. I think that would line up with the whole idea of a manifestation, that the more creative and the more you feel it, the more likely it is to happen. So a really good character development, subconsciously we feel it more and we like it. Whereas when we're just doing something that's purely self-interested, unless we're basically completely operating in the dark, there can be something in us, but basically less emotional and less feeling it. Whereas, for example, if we're looking to say, for example, it's much easier to manifest, say, a trip. Like, let's say you desire to manifest a beautiful trip to go away to the Maldives and just have a really good time of connection with your partner and use that for refreshing, a health retreat, to connect more with the masters and to be able to come back refreshed to do a better work. That's the kind of manifestation that you probably, your higher self, would jump on board with straight away, because it really goes along with what you're saying, which of course is very interesting. So yes, very, very interesting. So basically, it's yes, I like what Max was saying there. So liked very much what he was saying. So the whole idea with the whole thing is to basically operate within this reality and to do this. And pick the one the higher self would be happy to get on board with straight away, Christine. I couldn't agree with you more. So, and again, we use the Tribeca code to help us with our manifestations. The third one is, of course, clearing the blockage. Yeah, it's very helpful. I agree, Christine. So I'm noticing more and more of my manifestations, stuff that really feels good. Like, for example, something that Neville Goddard says this in his book called Feeling is the Secret. He says that ultimately it's all about emotion and how you feel. If you feel something, and this is this kind of cuts to what I call the fast track manifestation secret I was giving before, which was that one of the things, for example, is that they found in tantric sex, for example, that at the height of an orgasm is a very good time to manifest. And that's actually the truth, because you're in the higher state of emotion and intensity, and you, especially if you do what they teach you in Tantra and move the energy during your orgasm away from your lower parts up to your higher parts. This is something I actually learned this in tantric sex and practiced it for a long time. And it does actually work when you do this and really bring the energy right up. It's quite amazing how it can do that and how you can actually manifest in that state. And we've done that. And you can manifest more money, you can manifest more wealth and everything. Yeah, Max tried this and focused on the Tribeca manifestation. Christine Norby, how exciting. Yeah, I knew a few people would like that one. Yeah, William likes it. So gives you more incentive to get better at sex, doesn't it? So clearing blockages. It is commanded by the laws of the golden liquid realm. So this is the other part of manifestation, is getting rid of the blockages that are in the way, causing this to take place. So Tribeca code. And again, we use that for clearing water manifestations. Nolene, find an appropriate partner. Yeah, well, that would probably help, wouldn't it? So that would definitely help. So a conscious partner especially helps. So that's a little aside as well. Sex is one of these things that can either accelerate your life when you're having it with a really conscious, like-minded partner, or it can pull you right back when you're doing it with a lower consciousness partner. And this, by the way, was the very reason for the major fall of the Dark Masters, where the 200 Watchers, was that they were in the higher realms, they looked at the women on the earth who were obviously lower consciousness than them and couldn't help themselves and came down and started having sex with them. And this resulted in all kinds of problems on the planet and resulted in them being banished. So sex is one of these things that can get you into a lot of trouble if it's misused. And one thing to keep in mind. So taking action. For a manifestation to actualize, it is critical you take some action in the 3D. Think of something you can do to take action, even if small. So that's really important as well. So taking some kind of action. This is critical. The universe cannot move without action. Even if the action is totally wrong, you can now have momentum. Your higher self can adjust and steer you. Yeah, Christine says manifest one, Nolene. Yeah, look, I've done that successfully. I've used manifestation very much in the past. And of course, now I've got Semi, which is a great manifestation. So, and letting go and letting God. So, like I said, this is the hardest thing to do, yet the most important, because it's not till you let go that the masters can start to work. And just think of it like you're holding on to the masters trying to walk away with, say, a stick that you're carrying, and you keep holding on to it because you're going to go take the stick and put it somewhere and plant it, but you still keep holding onto the stick. Well, clearly the masters can't take the stick away from you until you let go of it. So letting go then gives a chance for things to work. It's why one of the most powerful forms of what I call indirect manifestation is that you ask a question and then don't answer it and just leave it hanging in your mind, because your unconscious doesn't like that and will start working to solve it for you. So a good example is, so how do I manifest a wonderful partner who's really aligned with me on all levels of my life? What do I do? What's my next step? And then leave it at that. It's what's called a really good quality question. Or another one is, so how can I get myself to be manifesting $100,000 per month without really much trouble, to be used for my, basically for my business, to be able to really enjoy the things that I do, and put $10,000 per month minimum into helping other spiritual teachers, helping the poor, for example, and then leave it at that. Or, so how do I manifest $300,000 a month so I can really complete all of my obligations and my promises to other people and basically invest in these particular things and get this new house? Or another one, how can I manifest $10,000 per month? Or how can I manifest an abundant income without even giving a figure, which enables me to easily meet all of my needs and over, and be able to abundantly provide and help other people as well? Something, and then almost say to your higher self, you know what I need, and I'll allow you to guide me. So there's different things you can, but asking these quality questions is really, really powerful. So, fast track manifestation secret. So use of sexual energy's three main centers: the brain, the heart, the sex center, for example. So this is the one I mentioned here. Something that Raymond Grace teaches, that there's three main centers in us: the brain, the heart, and the sex. And interestingly, it goes up in ascending order in terms of energetic power. The brain has very limited power compared to the heart, and the sex has even greater power than the heart. Many women, especially Raymond Grace points out, and those of you who've done Raymond's courses would remember him saying this, basically have blockages in their sex centers. He said it's very common with women because of the way women are sexualized today. So he said that's why many women have some challenges manifesting. So he does a lot of work in clearing that. So it's quite useful, even when you do a clearing. One thing that's even worth trying on particular things is to actually imagine the Tribeca code, clearing your main. That's why we like to replicate it in all the chakras and by conscious intention. So you're clearing the brain, the third eye, the crown chakra, the heart chakra, and the throat, and of course the sex center, and all this kind of stuff. So these are books which have all mentioned about these things. So I mentioned last week's too about the reasons why manifestations don't come to pass, and I won't go back over these again, but just again, really decided to emphasize these again for us before we now start. And now we'll move on to reading energy and getting on with that. The ability to intuitively read energy and sense into things is critical in success in business, relationships, in anything you do. Now, Natasha asks, any good author to follow in Tantra? Not really, Natasha. I tended to do courses or see a teacher. The only book I found that I thought was any good and that I thought taught some pretty good stuff in that area was Diane Richardson, something called Tantric Love. I mean, it's a very practical book. It's not, many of the books in Tantra are kind of a bit over the top of all these breathing and weird things you do, which is just, I find a bit too much. Her book's very practical. You know, it's just a very simple book to basically read about it and just the essence of what it's about. And I think she gets it, she encapsulates it all very, very well. So another very good one is not so much on Tantra, but a great book, especially for women who desire to have a better understanding of men, or men have a better understanding of women. I'll actually write this one in the text chat. David Data. It's called The Way of the Superior Man. Brilliant book about the masculine, feminine energy, and really great one to basically study and learn from. Data, yeah, David Data, that's correct. Historically, we use psychics, prophets, or people with advanced intuitive abilities. Yet, is it possible to develop or even learn from scratch intuitive abilities to become an energy reader? That is to tap into your intuitive abilities or insight and get accurate information on the future for you for planetary events, e.g. stock market, on crypto direction, sports results, etc. So there's 8 different ways I've got here, and I mean, there's probably more where you can learn to read energy. So 8 different ways. One is just pure intention or sensing. Now, many psychics, of course, natural psychics, can do this incredibly well. Now, obviously keep in mind, and you'll see this more later on when we look at remote viewing, what they actually found was that natural psychics were less accurate than trained remote viewers or trained psychics who are trained by technology and system, which is very interesting. They found that natural psychics tended to be a little bit more hit and miss, which has definitely been my experience too. So the pure intention is one very good way, and often I find in myself, the more you do remote viewing, your pure intention becomes more accurate. I know many traders who are very successful, who've been doing it for many, many years, who will tell you the same thing. They will say that the more they do trading, the more successful they get in it. So the more they do trading, they start to become more sensing and feeling, and they become a better sensor, they become a better feeler. The second one, which is the one, of course, we've been teaching you, is the higher self or left hand. So this is the one where you actually tune in your left hand, which is the yin receiving. The right hand is the masculine energy. And for example, when the energy flows out of your hand, that's basically generally means a yes under the training, or when it flows in, it means a no. So yes or a no. So, for example, how you can do this right now is you just tune into your left hand and breathe in for 4 counts and hold for 4 counts and breathe out for 8 counts. So breathe in for 4 and hold and breathe out for 8. And now just in your mind say yes. Yes, and just keep saying yes. And you should be feeling the energy move out of your hand or out of your fingers. And make sure your fingers, your forearm is resting, say, on your leg, so your fingers aren't touching anything. And then no. Now say no. 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 And you should be feeling the energy moving inwards. So that's basically your left hand. So just type in the text chat, who could feel the energy moving very clearly and who couldn't? So William can, Christine, Evans, Norby, Natasha, Fiona, Nolene, no. Helen just tingles. Jason, not sure. Mitchell, it's faint, but there. Yeah, Mitchell, that's spot on. It's faint. So yes, it's faint. And the truth is, if you think about it logically, you won't feel it. So those who are not sure, it's either one of two reasons. Either you've got a blockage going on, or you're just completely going by your head and you're not really tuning in your hand. So what we might do, I'm going to do a clearing on you. We're just going to go right back to the Tribeca code. And I'm just going to get you to breathe in for 4. And all of you can do this as well. Hold for 4 and breathe out of your mouth for 8. And just breathe this Tribeca code straight into your third eye and replicate it in your crown and through all your chakras. It is commanded that the Tribeca code is used to clear all energetic blocks, restrictions, implants, edge, or anything else in each and everyone's left hand and in their energy for being able to accurately read signatures of their left hand. Clear all blocks, clear all restrictions, and clear anything in the third eye, in the mind, or anywhere in any of the chakras, in all 7 chakras, on all levels, and in all the other morphogenetic chakras on all levels and all dimensions now. So I feel a bit of a block in doing this clearing. So now what we're going to do is I'm going to ask, is there any discarnates going on here? And the answer is yes. So what we're going to do now is use this to clear all discarnates that are in the way of blocking this clearing from each and every person now. Now starting to move. Okay, so have a glass of water, and now we're going to try it again. So all I want you to do is just rest your forearm on your knee and breathe in for 4 counts. And just keep holding for 4 counts and breathing out for 8. And now just say in your mind, yes. Yes. And just see which way the energy is moving. Yes. And now say no. In your mind, no. No. Okay. So what did you feel that time? Did anyone notice the improvement after doing that? Sometimes that solves it for people. Max, there was an improvement. Yep. I found even myself it was slightly more clear. Anyone else? Yeah, Nolene, hand felt heavier on the no. Yeah, that's perfect. That's actually good. Christine, stronger. Yeah, Nolene, that's really good. So if you're getting that, that means it's definitely improving. And that means that, Nolene, you definitely had some level of clearing. Jason T can feel very faint. That's good. No, the truth is, Jason, it is very faint. It's not, it's very gentle. It's like a subtle energy shift. So if you're feeling it, it's a subtle shift. It's really subtle. And often like dramatic feelings in your hand is more just in your head. Emily said, yeah, the hand feels actually lighter. No, that's good. Helen improved. Yeah. So that's one thing you can do, is we actually go ahead and clear this. I might add, when I first started doing this, after about the first year of doing this, I almost gave up. I thought, I just don't think I'm going to get this. But one thing about me is I don't give up, and I persisted it and did this. Oh, James, is it? Excellent, Helen, it's James. Helen, lol. Yeah, absolutely. Okay, so just keep breathing a bit, and now we're going to look at the next one. Hemisphere, yeah, Helen, good one. So pendulums, this is another way which you can do, where what you do is you get a chart and you learn to use a pendulum. This is something which I don't do as much of as I used to, but I still from time to time do pendulum dowsing, where you can actually ask the yes or no with the pendulum. Everyone finds what works best for them. I personally find for me that the left hand and remote viewing and sensing works better for me than the pendulum. Although I do use the pendulum sometimes when looking to actually measure energy. So in other words, yeah, for example, I might see what is my thymus life force right now. But it's a common one which I might do. Or another one I might do is using a pendulum, is I might check things like my level of allergy to something else. That's another example. So that's a very good example. Who of you have used pendulums before? Okay, no, so not many have used it. Yeah, so this is just to introduce you to pendulum. This is the kind of thing where we have run once a course on how to use pendulums and do energy reading. And yeah, these are pretty powerful. So what we might even do next week, for example, but I don't want to introduce you to it. Next week, we'll probably even start doing some energy reading and do more practical stuff and do practical live demonstrations and things like that. So yeah, so this is what we normally do. So today is more just to introduce you to it, and then in the subsequent weeks next week we'll actually show you and actually do some examples of this, and that's quite fun. So pendulums is another good way to do it. And for example, there's various ways, like you can train, because all the pendulum is doing is you're training it in your mind to spin clockwise or spin anti-clockwise as an example. So you might have it spin clockwise or spin anti-clockwise. And that's a really good example where you spin it anti-clockwise or spin it clockwise. And anti-clockwise generally means clearing or removing negative energy. Clockwise normally means energizing things. Raymond Grace is a classic example of someone who's a master with the pendulum who uses this to energize food. And I can remember I used to use this extensively myself, and it's very effective where you can actually check food, for example, and if food's got its level of life force for you, whether it's a positive or negative. And then if it's negative, you can do a clearing of the qualities and then go ahead and energize the food. So you can do that with this, and it's very, very effective. And I can remember being in Virginia, for example, and being in a very low consciousness area where the food was terrible, to be frank, absolutely shocking. And I was energizing the food. So basically what we did was we energized the food, and the food immediately tasted completely new. So I was energizing it to taste like sourdough. This is one of these things you need to stay in practice with. I noticed when I was a bit like speed reading. If you're in practice with it and your muscles are working, I got to the stage where I was regularly able to energize and transform the nature of food very easily, and water. I've noticed these days it's kind of more hit and miss, and in all honesty, it's because I'm not doing enough of it. So it's one of the things I plan to get more back into again. But when I was doing this regularly, I was finding that energizing and transforming food was very straightforward. I personally like using bobbers. I find bobbers are great. Bobbers are used to, they're similar to a pendulum, except they're more just a pure yes or no, or they spin anti-clockwise for clearing or clockwise for energizing. I find bobbers, and something at Ed Strachan, when we were talking about bobbers and pendulums, he remember saying to me that for a beginner, a bobber's easier to master than a pendulum. And I found that to be very true. So, yeah, they are. They're quite amazing. So bobbers, an example of those is you use them and you hold them, and then they just basically go up and down. So let's see if I can, let me just hold on, everyone. I'm going to go see if I can find my bobber and show you on webcam. So everyone just hold on for 1 sec. I'm going to be away off for about 30 seconds, see if I can find this. Yeah, now for some reason I can't find everyone, so no matter. Let me just have a quick look online, see if I can find a bobber example for you. I think Ram and Grace have got videos on YouTube, so that might be a good. Yeah, so if you look at ones here, you'll be able to watch these videos on YouTube. So you can see here using a bobber and how you can get a yes or no. So this can be quite useful to see if there's a spirit or things like that. So bobbers and pendulums can be very useful in that sense. But yeah, I'll let you watch those videos and have a look. Codes are, of course, the other way which we read energy with, or we use to clear energy and move and work within energy. So codes are particularly good for that in that sense. So pyramids and the Tarot I Ching. So codes, there's various codes that we use. And the reason that codes are so effective in reading energy or moving energy is they actually, if you read the Keys of Enoch, for example, or most technology on this, generally a multi-dimensional beings, and those of you who've been at multi-dimensional experiences, like on psychedelics or just in visions or altered states, would know what I mean. That when you're in these higher realms, everything happens telepathically, and if anything by visions, symbols, and senses. And I'm sure you know what I mean. Like Max, I guess you especially would probably know what I'm talking about. But things happen a lot more by senses, impressions, and visions and images. So, and pretty much that's how even remote viewing works most effectively. So where codes are very effective, for example, is that they actually activate what you do is you inhale these codes straight into your third eye, and these codes actually activate you. So what they do is they shift energy, they shift frequency. The Keys of Enoch talks a lot about the power of pictographs and codes and symbols to do this, to actually shift things. So pictographs, codes, and symbols are very, very powerful to basically move and shift energy. As an example, this Hierophant code on the far right, this star at the very top right, that's a very powerful code to clear your food. So, for example, let's just say you got some food and you bless it, because blessing your food is really, really good for they've proven that if you bless your food and speak well over it, that actually changes the energy of your food. So what I do is we bless our food, for example. You can give thanks for the food and be grateful for it. And then you can also put the Hierophant code, and that clears any energy. So you start at the bottom left, see where my mouse cursor is, go up to the top. You draw over that with your finger. Then you go to top left and go down that way, anti-clockwise. So notice this way, you go clockwise, and then anti-clockwise. And then the first time round, you go around anti-clockwise. And that's the clearing code. Then you do it the other way around. You go clockwise, anti-clockwise, and then this time you go around clockwise. So the first time anti, second time. So you do the code twice over your food. It's quite powerful. Nolene says she loves the codes we're putting on Facebook. Yeah, they're pretty awesome, aren't they, Nolene? Really great for clearing you, and really good to do this. These ones here are really great codes, and we love doing these for what's called high Becker clearings on people. So some in Mastermind and other groups, we've done this with people. So codes are very powerful. Pyramids. Yeah, Christine loves the purple one. Bottom right. Yeah, I love that one too. I don't actually know the name of that one, but I love that one. Pyramids, of course, is one of the most probably common thing that I use as much as more than anything. I use pyramids pretty much daily basis now. Like I'm projecting a golden crystal or white crystalline pyramid every time I go and do a meditation. The first thing I do is create a vortex or whirlwind around me, followed by a white crystalline pyramid to preserve and to protect the energies. So basically, pyramids is another way. David Bulcock, in his synchronicity key, he shows, as well as his source code fields, how pyramids, and in various experiments, when they've done things, for example, like they've got plants that are dying, they leave some outside the pyramid, put some in the pyramid. They find the ones in the pyramid actually come back to life without even being watered. They found people with health issues and pain have had the same kind of thing. So they found people with massive kind of pain in their body go into a pyramid for any length of time. It fixes it. I know at the moment my hair's gone massively thick. I used to have very thin, wispy hair that was starting to fall out. And literally I use pyramids, and Sammy's been helping me lately doing regular pyramids over my head. And my hair is actually getting thicker and thicker. It's quite profound. My hairdresser, even without me saying anything, goes, "How did you get your hair thicker? I just noticed your hair's a lot thicker." So pyramids are very effective. My friend Ed Stratcher, he had prostate problems. He spent 3 days projecting a pyramid over his prostate, went back again, and they said his prostate's fine now. Yeah, Max, I just visualize it. So I just visualize pyramids over the area. So no, I build an energetic one, Christine. They've proven that whether it's energetic or physical makes absolutely zero difference. Christine, has Anna been told that a three-sided pyramid is more stable than a four-sided pyramid? Because of the pole shift, the noise is coming from Tesla. Yeah, interesting. I mean, I don't know about the three-sided. You mean three-sided, not four-sided, I'm presuming. You said tree, I think you mean three, Christine, but yeah. Yeah, I go by sense. The one I create is the three-sided, this one that you got here. That's generally the one which I do, this three-sided one. I didn't even know there was a four-sided pyramid, to be honest. So, yeah, this is the one that I always project, something like this. So, in Russia, I've done a whole teaching on this in my Awakening Within, which I'll be doing again soon in the past, where we taught about pyramids. So we taught about pyramids in that one, and we went through and actually showing how in Russia, they use pyramids heavily in Russia and get amazing results in the water supply and things like that. So, okay, so pyramids. So now Tarot I Ching psychic readings. So okay, so Tarot I Ching and psychic readings. This is the other way, is using tarot cards or the I Ching. The I Ching is quite an interesting one. So what the I Ching does is, Joseph Murphy writes a whole book on it. It's a very accurate way of being able to read and get very accurate readings. I've used it a number of times. It involves chucking coins and actually using coins. It's used by China for 5,000 years by the diviners and the emperors over there. Very, very accurate. And I've used this myself many times to see if I'm on the right track in something that I'm doing. So, for example, the I Ching, you got to be very specific. I find the I Ching is more accurate than the tarot, for example. So the I Ching, they specifically go ahead and look at so what you do is you chuck 6 coins. So the best way, I'm just thinking how to show you the I Ching. I'm not going to spend a lot of time on this today, but let me just quickly show you I Ching. The I Ching is basically made up of 64 hexagrams, and just to show you what I mean. Yeah, so basically how it works is you chuck 3 coins 6 times, and then depending on whether you get 3 heads, which means you get a full line, or if you get 3 tails, you get a broken line, or if you get 2 heads and a tail, you get a changing line, and 2 tails and a head. And in simple terms, what this is doing is, depending on what you get, there's 64 possible combinations you can get, and depending on the combination that you actually end up getting will depend on what your reading is. I mean, there's 64 different hexagrams and 64 readings. And then even within those readings, depending on the 6 coin tosses will depend on what you get. So it's just another way where you can actually go and you can read energy. So basically, just excuse me, everyone. I'm just going to close this Skype down. It just doesn't stop. Okay. So that should make it a bit easier. Yeah, so they're just normal coins. You don't have to use any special coins. This is one of the common questions people ask, and the short answer is no. There's no special coins that you have to do with the I Ching of any kind. So no special coins. You just use any coins. So it takes a bit of training to use the I Ching. This is not something, this is a whole course in itself. And you'll need about, I find normally in the first 2 webinars, people are totally lost. So that's why I'm really trying to avoid going too much into this. But just to give you an example, let's just say that from tossing the coins, you end up with hexagram 39 as your reading. So then hexagram 39 will come up and give you. Joseph Murphy, who writes The Power of the Subconscious Mind, loves the I Ching. And he said this has been used to help people not marry someone. There was one lady who did the I Ching about a potential marriage, and it clearly gave her the biggest warning on the planet, so she didn't go ahead with it. She found out 3 days afterwards the guy had been married to 5 other girls and then abandoned them within a week of getting married. So this is pretty damn useful to learn this. So this is called impasse, for example. So if you got I Ching hexagram 39, this would tell you about, there's certain signals, like seeing the great man means see a wise person. So impasse means you've got some obstruction, you've got some difficulty. So you've got something in the way of what you're doing. So in other words, what you're thinking of doing will have an obstruction for you. And it's kind of warning you that maybe you should consider stopping what you're doing and not going any further. So as an example. So it's basically saying that it's a wise, that right now, if you read this carefully, what it would really be saying to you is that stop what you're doing for now, go and get some advice before you proceed further. That's basically what it's saying to you. Then let's say, for example, if you got a particular coin thing as well, where it showed that the first coin toss was the most effective. In other words, sometimes it shows that one of the coin tosses is more powerful than the other. So line 1 means at the bottom that the last coin toss, it goes in reverse. So Will and Baines are generally the most accurate interpreter. Going leads to obstructions, coming meets with praise. In other words, it's kind of giving you, again, it's time to wait. So the basic thing is what it's saying to you is it's time to wait and get direction before going any further. Don't go there, wait and see. I was about to last year go on a major business venture myself, in actually 2017, and did an I Ching reading, which just kept giving me all kinds of obstructions. And when I did to focus on my spiritual path and to stay involved in my tax business for now, I got a very strong reading that was saying go ahead. So I followed that, and that turned out to be the right path. So the I Ching is a very, very useful one and a great one to do. And then the last one here is remote viewing. So remote viewing. This is a practice of seeking impressions about a distant or unseen target, purportedly using extrasensory perception or sensing with mind. Yeah, who would be interested, by the way, before I go on that one, actually going back here, about learning more about the I Ching? Is there anyone who'd be interested if we did a course on that? It's brilliant, but yeah, it's a fairly convoluted tool, but once you master it, it's brilliant. One of the most accurate tools is better than the tarot, better than pendulums, better than bobbers, better than anything, I find, that for very specific questions. Yeah, it's very good for very specific questions, is what I find. Yeah, so Helen and Christine Norby, yeah, okay. Great, so 2 people, Fiona. Yeah, it's very, very useful. Certainly when it comes to whether you should move forward in a relationship or partnership, especially useful. So remote viewing, and many of you know we've spoken about this, but this is obviously the most accurate of all. And I find they've got different uses. The I Ching is for more specific questions, and the remote viewing is I use more for yes or no outcomes. Whereas the I Ching I use more for direction and overall guidance on something. So the remote viewing, and what's important to understand with remote viewing and why it's so blooming effective and why it's such a powerful tool to access and master the unconscious. And it's very interesting because J.J. Hurtak, who wrote The Keys of Enoch, I read the other day, wrote a whole book, literally, on remote viewing and how powerful it was and the advances in the area. So it's a practice of seeking impressions about a distant or unseen target. RV procedures were originally developed in laboratories funded by the US military and intelligence services in the 70s and used for spying. So originally it was bought out because they discovered that Russia and places like that were using remote viewing quite heavily. So it's now advanced quite significantly, and it's now being used quite extensively. Understand, but there was 12 remote viewers who were trained by the military in the original experiment who became very successful in doing remote viewing, very, very successful in it. And once they disbanded it, many of these 12 went around the world teaching courses and still to this day do it. Lynn Buchanan, there's a number of people who do this remote viewing. And his courses, I actually remember reading a lot of books around Lynn Buchanan, Paul Smith, and a few others, Ed Dames, Angela McClonical, there's Joseph McGonigal. There's a number of these remote viewers. And so basically what remote viewing is being able to access the higher realms. And I know that a couple of you at the moment are doing the Gerald O'Donnell CDs or doing my videos and learning it. And it's a very, very, very effective technology. And it is something that you have to master. And for any of you who have a problem getting out of your head, you will learn the hard way of remote viewing very quickly. It's the best teaching to get you out of your head because you get punished severely with remote viewing. It's one of these things, there's severe consequences for getting into your head, where in terms of your outcome. And it's almost like your unconscious mind punishes you and plays tricks on you deliberately when you do that. So you really do need to learn to do that. So it's very effective. So there's remote viewing versus remote influencing. So remote viewing is more really accurately stated as remote sensing. So it's letting go of the mind and really, really feeling in. That's basically what it is. So it's contrasted with remote influencing, which is when you use energy and mental projection to manifest or influence situation or even clear a person or shift their consciousness. So that's basically what remote viewing is doing as compared to remote influencing. So influencing is when you're trying to change an outcome. Remote viewing is more remote sensing, where you're more just trying to get data on a particular outcome. So that's more what it is. So in other words, remote viewing senses what is. Remote influencing is changing what is. So that's a big difference. Gerald O'Donnell basically, for example, who's a main teacher on this area, has both in what he's doing. Both remote influencing and basically remote viewing training. So RV has been used operationally in the past with considerable success by military, and a number of books have been published. So yeah, Christine, no, the difference is quite clear. There was a positive official government evaluation of the government's early remote viewing program. So it's been very much proven technology, and that's the main thing to get with remote viewing. It's had millions of dollars invested in it, and it's probably got one of the most reputable, best tested areas of science that really does work effectively. Interestingly, the only time they found that remote viewing didn't work is when you had significant skeptics in the room who didn't believe it at all and were kind of casting their energetic doubt upon it, which is quite interesting when you consider that when Jesus was doing his miracles, many times he would remove people from the room who were crying or emotional, especially in his miracles when he raised the dead. He always removed people out of the room who were crying or mourning their death because he knew that their lack of belief would influence him and would affect the ability to do the miracle. So he removed them and refused to do it. The great healer Smith Wigglesworth did very similar things. He always removed the skeptics and the doubters out of the way because he knew that they would get in the way and stop the miracle from actually happening. So in RV, yeah, correct, Christine. It's pretty interesting, isn't it? You realize that really, really fast. In RV theory, everything in the universe exists as a pattern of information within the collective unconscious, or what is sometimes referred to as the matrix. Remote viewing simply allows you to tap into this phenomenon and to transfer a particular pattern to your conscious awareness. Remote viewers use various styles to gather descriptive data of a target, which is usually some place or event at some point in time. It's considered a controlled shifting of awareness performed in the normal waking states of consciousness. It does not typically involve an out-of-body experience, hypnosis, and altered state of consciousness or channeling. You go into an alpha state at a minimum, and ideally a theta state. You cannot do RV in the beta state, because if you do that, you're really just reading the mass mind and the energy of what's going on with everyone in relation to the event. The conscious mind must be kept out of it. You must be in a state of no mind or no thing. All styles of RV, and there's various styles ranging from the yes or no style, which is mainly what I do, to what's called extended remote viewing. And extended remote viewing, so associative controlled remote viewing is the yes or no, which is what I do. And extended remote viewing, which I only occasionally do, is where you actually let go completely. And it's a kind of form of astral travel, but it's not really astral travel. You just go and you can view different places, different events, or different places and see what's going on. So you move into a deep enough state of mind, you can see events. You can see, like even, for example, very advanced remote viewers can actually travel to Paris right now and see what's going on and actually describe with great accuracy what is happening in Paris right now, even as we speak. So it's nothing less than achieving an altered state of consciousness to basically view data emanating from the higher mind. Yeah, Christine, it's exciting, isn't it? I mean, it's something that mastering this is very much worth doing it. All the states of consciousness are not new. And I think I spelled that wrong, but Burning Man phenomenon, Nikola Tesla, Holy Ghost Pentecostals and Quakers, drug users, psychedelic drug users. All of these use all the states of consciousness to access and clear things and actually get extra data. I know when I've been in these all states of consciousness, you can see other lifetimes, other dimensions, other realms, parallel universes, everything. So the Burning Man phenomenon, for example, is more about the fact that many of the world leaders of today actually travel and go to these places, and they specifically go to get all the states of consciousness to get downloads for their business or their work. I'm doing a lot of that right now. I'm finding that more and more I'm getting myself into a deeper state so I can get very specific downloads. And it's very interesting when you really listen. And because I was running ahead doing all this stuff, and when I really went into a deep state, all I was told to do was focus on my healing and just keep taking action consistently around my business and my change and building this awakening work, and to trust the process and trust what they were doing. That's all I was told to do. So I was like, okay, I'm not going to say no to that. So it's pretty good, pretty damn useful, and lots, of course, fun. So great insights do absolutely come to you in an altered state. So this is where you get your greatest insights, when you learn to do this and master being in an altered state. So what RV is not, what the remote view is not doing is telling the future like a psychic, quite the contrary. Psychics were very unsuccessful as remote viewers. Rather, they are determining the likelihood of or probable future of an event happening. That's all they're doing. And the reality is the probable future can change if there are material changes in consciousness. That's the not so fun part. As I found in remote viewing, my difficulty when I first started doing it is I'm a natural perfectionist and like 100% accuracy. So I found this very difficult because I soon found that remote viewing isn't a guaranteed guide. I mean, you can certainly get more and more accurate, but there are times you're going to read it and it's just not going to happen. Most of my readings, I will say I get accurate. The ones I don't, most of those ones, I normally see where I misanalyzed it or I didn't see the clues. Occasionally though, I do a remote view and I just straight out, I really can't see anything different. I just happen to, for whatever reason, I read it and things cross-right or scrambled, and that can happen. Because remote viewing will be affected by various things. There's things like what's called AOLs, which means your analytical mind overlay gets involved, your conscious mind overlay. If you're feeling sick and you don't declare it, if you're feeling down or feeling flat. And what they found is you can still remote view effectively even when you're sick or flat or down, provided you declare it up front and write it down on your paper. So this way you name it. This way you kind of move out of your current state into the altered state. If you don't declare it, you tend to bring it into your altered state. So it's been examples of where RV has been successfully used. It's been used to actually describe a location on the other side of the world which has never been visited, describe an event that happened long ago, the Titanic and what caused it, describe an object sealed in a container or locked in a room, describe a person or an activity. Describe a photo linked to an associated target event, e.g. sports game outcome, futures market. So what I'm going to do now is I'm actually going to show you some very specific things about remote viewing, and I think it's easy to show you. So I'm going to introduce you to associative remote viewing, just to give you an example. So associative remote viewing it's interesting, I don't quite know how that all got in there, but anyway. So this is a template that we use and which Ed Dames, who's one of the military remote viewers, what they designed for a basic remote view. So you get an opportunity to write down things, and the reason they've got ideogram and things like that, the target reference number, what they found in technology from doing remote viewing was the more structured they made it, the better their results. For example, when you had people working together and one knew the pictures, for example, and the other didn't, or knew the target, they'd find that subconsciously they would be communicating the target to the people. So to basically, they found that the more they kind of kept separation, they brought in this thing called a target reference number, where every remote view was given a specific target reference number, and it was designed to make it very clear which target or which thing you were actually looking at doing. So the example that we do here in a remote view is we just record. So really all we're doing is recording our impressions. So so once we start the session, like what do you sense? Textures, colors, smells, taste, temperatures, sounds, dimensions, aesthetic impact. And then following up by a sketch, just drawing what you sense and what you feel is like this sketch. And that's a very powerful, quite interesting one. A general rule too is the sketch is the most accurate part of the remote view. So if your sketch contradicts your descriptors, you either don't go ahead and rely on it, or else you take the sketch more seriously than you do what you've written. So as you can see here, so that's the basics of a remote viewing. Then what they even give you, or what we've used, is a set of descriptors. So the descriptors are just basically various words which you can learn. So part of remote viewing is also to learn to improve your vocabulary. So you've actually, I remember going through all these definitions and studying them in a dictionary, just so I understood them. Because the more descriptors you've got, the more you can describe what you're getting and what you're sensing and what you're picking up. And there's even a little remote viewing definitions here, which they've come up with a various vocabulary. So it's a whole science of accessing the unconscious mind. So you can see here, there's all kinds of different definitions and things like that. One thing I'll show you as well. So there's a very useful paper here, for example. This was actually a study done by this man here over 13 years, doing that exact remote viewing between May 11, 1998 to September 26, 2011. And as you can see there, a total of 5,677 trials. So that's pretty good. So what they found was was using remote viewing even just overall 52.65% accuracy. Now it doesn't sound that much. However, what they found was once they started getting more specific or basically taking the actual views more by quality of the views rather than just taking every view, no matter how bad or good it was. So subjective confidence scores, they found the success rate increased to above 70%. 181 project questions resulted. 60% of these trades were profitable, amounting to approximately 146,000. So in other words, they were getting 60% accuracy without doing any analysis of trading. There's Nolene, who trades, would tell you, you'd certainly make money if you got 60% accuracy in your trading and followed basic rules. So even without doing any analysis of the charts or anything, all they were doing was remote viewing the trade. At the moment, I'll show you, for example, a current remote view I just did last night. And I'll just get up this Forex chart here. And then I'll just get up this, I'll leave it actually for now. So last night, for example, I did a US Canadian long or short, okay? Based on what Nolene told me she was looking at doing. So this is just to give you an example of how this works. So let's just wander over here. So let's just make this a 4-hour chart. So you can see here, for example, so I just did a remote view for a sell on the 4-hour chart on the Canadian one, okay? And I did it when it was around about here. Now, Nolene mentioned to me, I happened to notice on the chart it was that. So overall, I was leaning more towards a sell, and the remote view more was to tell me if the sell or not was a good idea to go ahead and do this. So this basically, it's long or short. So that's long or that's short. So picture one, and remember, I don't know these pictures before I do them. I have my son, James, doing these pictures for me. And so there's all these fruit, all these beautiful horses here. So I did a remote view last night on a sell. Now, it wasn't a strong view, but overall, there's no question which one I thought which I got. I put wavy, sketchy, slightly firm, spongy, blue, white, grey, and green. But the first colours I got was blue and white. So as you can see here, it's blue and white. No blue and white there. Now there's no orange anywhere, so that's an AOL, which means I made it up. There is some green here, but overall, I'm more confident in the ones in the beginning or at the end, as a rule, unless they're in brackets. That's my little system that I use here. So curved, strong, full, and triangle and round. So I noticed that normally if I'd written like circle, oval, or things like that, I would have been taking it more seriously. But curved, strong, and full definitely sounds, as you probably would agree, more like the horse than it does these. So that made me start to think, okay, I would say I probably got this one. I'm leaning more towards going down. Then my sketch. Now, not as accurate as I'd like, but sketches, they never are. Remote viewing is not a perfect science. This definitely looks more like a horse or beach than it would, say, a whole lot of apples or something like that. It's kind of a little bit all over the place. And I thought, okay, it's certainly looking more like a horse, a beach, things like that. So I basically said that's what I got. And I did this last night when you'll see it's around about here. So the price when I did this would have been around about, yeah, it was slightly around there, about that price there. I did it there. And did it on this red thing here. So as you can see, if a trade had been done, it would have made a nice, probably 60 pips, basically. I went on this morning. And in all honesty, I would have probably closed out on that one if I'd done the trade myself. I gave it to Nolene. I don't know if Nolene did it or not, but yeah. And as you can see now, that's changed, and Nolene's got different rules to what I would do. But under my analysis, I would probably go, okay, I got it for a sell. It's made us profit. It's 60 up, but it's kind of hasn't really gone down as much as it did last time. And this has gone down. So overall, I might choose to stay in depending on your rules and do a trailing stop. Nolene didn't. Nolene self-sabotage. I told you I had a strong one there, didn't I? You would have made some money for yourself. So basically there, yeah, self-sabotage, absolutely. Yeah, no, I told you that was that one to do, because that one I was reasonably confident in what I got. And so as you can see here, depending on the rules, you either would take your profit or you'd move your trailing stop down, depending on how you do it. Either way, it's gone in direction. Now let's just do a contrast with gold. I did a remote view on gold. Now keep in mind, I did this one more for the week, but I'll show you how much fun this can actually be. And you kind of go, whoa, you know, after a while. And keep in mind, it's not a perfect science, as you can see. And I did one on gold last night as well. So with gold, that was my one for up. That was for going up. Now this is a little bit annoying. This is one of these ones where the photos were a little bit too similar for my liking, and they seem different, but the colors, as you probably noticed, are reasonably similar in a way. There's kind of a paley, white, brightish feel about it, which when you get very similar, it's not as easy, and you're more prone to make mistakes. So that was a little bit of a sign for me. And sometimes your unconscious is giving you a heads up. And blue, golden, grey, and green. So that, to me, blue, kind of greyish, whereas here, yeah, I mean, you can see here there's a bit of green, a bit of blue. The colours don't tell you a lot. Hard, solid, and soft. That stopped me thinking, because that soft came in. I remembered how it came in just out of the blue in the way it did. So I thought, okay, this is telling me there's definitely round, centered, thick, diamond, triangle, over. Round, centered, thick. So again, it kind of hits both of them, as you can see there. This is a very difficult one to work out. So then I thought maybe my sketch will give me a clue. And yeah, look, if anything, that's a tough one to work out. And I thought, okay, overall that sketch is probably more, if anything, this one. So my conclusion was, it really was likely to be a sideways, if anything. Really didn't know. And if anything, at first I said go down, but by the end of it, I concluded possibly more up. And I said that to Nolene last night. And if you look at gold here, this is what gold has done. So it has overall, I did the remote view somewhere back around when it was 13.24. So it's gone up slightly, but not a lot. So it has gone up, but it's really range bound at the moment. It's not really going anywhere. So it's going up slightly, if anything. So you can see how remote viewing can be a heck of a lot of fun. I'll just show you one last one where I use it for a sports bet. Sports betting can be a bit more frustrating, I'll be frank, because things can shift and change. This is one which I did this morning. And you'll see here the New York Islanders and the Calgary Flames in an ice hockey game. So that's the New York Islanders. Lovely sunset, golden, bright, beautiful sunset. And a fridge. So you can see there this is good, two very different pictures. So I thought, okay, I like the look of this. And you can see here, so green, brown, and white. So it's not really anything like that. That's green and is white. So I thought, okay, firm, pure, and rough. There's a bit of a pure, nice little thing of this. So I thought, okay, mild. Yes, Max, you need someone else to do the images for you. Temperature's warm. That was the only one I thought, okay. But I thought, well, I'm going to ignore that one. I use them. I don't cut them out. I used to cut them from magazine, but now I just get it from the internet, Rochelle. I get my son James does them all for me. So triangle, circle, curved, back, and left. So I thought doesn't really. It kind of look like that, but circle, curved, back. It's back and it's left. So I thought, yeah, I'm going to definitely think at the moment. I'm starting to think this is the one that I probably got. And I thought, nah, that's the fridge. So in the end, I thought that's the one I've got. So I backed myself on that one and placed the bet this morning, and I won it. They won 3-1. Interestingly, I did another game, which I'll quickly show you, which was far more mixed. Far more mixed. And I really couldn't make this one clear. This one, I did break my normal rules, and originally I called Boston, then I called Sharks, then I called Boston, then I called Sharks. And in the end, I placed the bet on Sharks because my friend got the Sharks. Now, that broke all my rules, which normally I go by my own call. If I followed my own call, I would have probably gone with Boston, but because my friend got it, I thought, okay. And this one, the Sharks won. So overall today was a neutral day for me, for example. Yesterday was a winning day. I won on both my bets today. I got one right, one wrong. The truth was, and this was the annoying thing for me, and this is what you'll find in remote viewing, I actually did get this one right, because when I first did it, I basically called it the Bruins. So I'll show you the photos. One is this picture of a guitar. Second one is a picture of an outside. Normally when I get outside scenery, this is where experience comes in. After a while, you get a sense. You've got all these different tastes that are very naturey. Here it wasn't like that at all. I had grey, brown, and purple. Now what threw me was I didn't write orange or gold or anything. So that's why, but then at the same time, I didn't really do up green and outside. So I thought, okay, no, pure, thick, softish, and hard. That didn't really sound like being outside. Wide, round, oval, cylindrical, full. Started to sound more like a guitar if you think about it. That's why originally, but then when I looked at that, again, more guitar. So after this first reading, I called Boston. The second reading, though, was probably a lot more like the Sharks, I thought, when I first did it, because there's a picture of a lion here, as you'll see there. And here's where I ignored one of his clues your unconscious gives me. So I'm showing you my successes and failures, just so you see the real truth of remote viewing. I actually did a very good view on this one in hindsight, and I just basically let my friends reading influence me. See, watery, wood, full, olive, grey, orange, turquoise. Okay, so when I first got it, I thought, oh, it's orange. That's definitely that line. That was what I first thought. So, but when I looked through, cool jumped out at me, because you can see there, that's obviously cold. And I don't normally get cool. Round, centered, horizontal, and strong. So I thought, oh, that's round, and that's centered. So I thought, this is kind of round and horizontal, and that could be either. Yeah, so no turquoise in that lion picture. So, but as you can see here, the turquoise was in brackets. Again, a few AOLs. But overall, You can see there, this is where sense comes in. The sense was not many colors. That was what I was seeing in that one. So that was what was troubling me. The orange kind of influenced me in that situation. But in the end, I thought that's probably a line. But to be honest, again, I originally said I got the first photo was because all those little lines there really reminded me of the snow, if you look at the snow, and there's trees. So see how the trees have had all those little squiggles. So in the end, I got that one wrong, when in all honesty, I probably shouldn't have. Whereas, say, the other day, I had a reading, which I don't have time to go through now, but when I did a reading, yesterday I got both mine right, so it wasn't that, but 24th of February. Yeah, this one I got these two right. That one I got right. That one I originally called wrong, but changed at the last minute, fortunately. This one was just one of these runs where I thought I got a pretty clear hit and got two clear hits on it, bet without hesitation, and the other team won 4-0. So that's one of these 1 in 10 ones that do happen. Okay, any questions before we end today? What about doing the sports betting using left-hand energy reading? Less accurate than remote viewing? Everyone, Max, who's done that, I found generally, with one exception, gets less accuracy. I do know one person who was, but then her accuracy dropped off. They found with millions of dollars of technology that the remote viewing is more effective than anything else I've shown you over the long term. So, but it's a very good question. I do use the left hand to back up my reading sometimes. Like today on the Calgary Flames and the Islanders, I did an energy read, and I got on the left hand, I got a very clear Calgary Flames. So I placed the bet without hesitation. I once placed a huge bet about 3 weeks ago when the energy reading and the actual remote viewing lined up so accurately, I just went in really big. Any other questions? You can use I'll be teaching you this next week. You can even use remote viewing for Baccarat. How do you do the photos? Having my daughter. Yeah, get someone else to do them for you, basically. Do you have the file sent to you unopened? Yeah, I do. I'll quickly show you. Let me show you. So I have a set of photos that James has put in for me. See, so game 87, photo 1, photo 2. Oh, bugger, I saw it. So I'm going to have to get James to change them around now. I didn't realize it would show up. But yeah, so game... so what you've got here is, so I've got the photos, put it away for me in there, and then I just move them across and I label it a game. So that's how I do it. I used to cut them out and use magazines, but I found that a little bit annoying, to be honest with you. Any more questions? Who enjoyed that remote viewing, by the way? Who actually enjoyed that and is quite excited by the prospects? Yeah, my view is that anyone who likes to trade or do betting or do investing should be seriously doing this. I'm a big fan of it. I think it's like something that, let's just say I believe it's going to be in 10 years' time, it'll be the future. Yeah, Nolene, well, look, like anything, this is where you just got to start, I think you got to clear some self-sabotage there, because what you want to make sure you're doing, this is why when you're placing the bets I give you, or when we're doing them, the reality is I'm going to get some wrong, as I've shown you. I'm going to tell you one, I'm going to be completely wrong. So that's going to happen. But as the Red Collar Digest paper showed, you can get significant accuracy and improve it. And what I love it, what makes me excited about doing it with Forex trading more and more, I've noticed my accuracy is actually higher in Forex and futures trading than sports betting. And I believe the reason is because I actually use it in conjunction with charting. So the charts can help you. Like this chart on gold tells me, for example, that it's hard to really say what direction it's going to go. But overall, if anything, it's more likely up. So that tells me about my warning on that my signs are possibly going down. It's more likely to be wrong, or that's a trade I should probably sit out of, for example. So if you look at, say, another one, like the euro US dollar, for example, and look at the daily, see that one again, probably on the charts, it's kind of going up, but the stochastic, which I find is the only indicator I find useful myself. There's another one that I really like, the New Zealand JPY, for example. So if you look at that one on the 4-hour chart, that's one I would definitely be looking at for a possible up, because the stochastic's gone all the way down, and notice how the price has hardly moved. So that's telling me, but that's where I would seriously consider Nolene remote viewing that one for an up. I'm probably going to do it. And the daily one does tell you there's not much time left, limited time, but it's probably, you know, 40, 50 pip trade sitting in there from what I can see, which I might have some fun remote view later on. Any more questions? Okay, everyone. Well, thanks a lot. And I look forward to seeing you all next week, or some of you tomorrow. Bye for now.